Are you looking for a space where you will learn to improve your mental strength, emotional health, and heal your insecurities from the inside out? Take the first step to living a more meaningful life with the Better Me with Body by Bree podcast. I'm your host, Bree. I'm a certified personal trainer, entrepreneur, and mother of 3. I've helped empower thousands of women to take action through fitness, nutrition, meditation, personal development, and aligning thoughts with action. This podcast is for those who are ready to feel inspired and motivated to live a more purposeful life. Let's grow together. Breastfeeding can either be the most beautiful experience or the most anxiety-filled experience. For me, it came with a lot of hardships, anxiety, trials, and I wish that I had more support around breastfeeding. So I actually brought on an expert to our podcast. Aubri Lutz owns Lutz Lactation, and she is also a Neonatal Intensive Care Unit nurse. She is a lactation specialist. She lives in Texas. What is interesting about her is that she also struggled with her first baby with breastfeeding. And it was in those overwhelming moments that she knew that lactation was her big calling. And she never wanted another family to feel anxiety or isolated in their feeding journey. And so in September 2020, she obtained her IBCLC license, and she now helps women to feel confident breastfeeding. And so we talk all about the struggles and some of the things that you can do to help this be a more enjoyable experience. And I learned so much from her. I can't wait for you to learn from her as well. She serves families worldwide, online, and in their homes in the Texas area. Here we go. Let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, Aubri. How are you?
I'm doing good. So good. It's fall, but not really here in South Texas. Still like 90 degrees. So a little warm.
I know this week it's going to be 105 in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why? It's
Yes,
supposed to
totally.
be October. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you so much. And I just know from your Instagram, from having previous discussions with you, that you're just a wealth of knowledge. And I can't wait for you to share that with our listeners. So I am really passionate about breastfeeding, and I'm kind of an anomaly because I understand how important it is, and I want to spread the knowledge as much as possible. But I also, which we'll get into, did not nurse my last baby. I nursed the first 2, but not the last one. And so we're going to talk about this, talk about the emotional aspect of breastfeeding, the physical aspect, the benefits. We have so much to talk about. I'm so excited. But before we do, can you give us a little bit of a background on why you are so passionate about breastfeeding and why you started Let's Lactation?
Yeah, so I really started my private practice out of this idea of I struggled a lot with my first baby. I had a lot of anxiety around breastfeeding. And I can remember vividly leaving the pediatrician's office a few times just in tears. Like, this is not going well. I don't know what to do next. What's the next step? What's going to work for me? And I just really, Lutz lactation kind of started out of a place of I never want another mom to feel that way. I always want her to have a friend or have a support person that's going to say, hey, what's going on here? How can I help you? Let's take a realistic look of what's working, what's not, and what's going to work for your little tiny and what's going to work for you in a way that's healthy for both of you. So that way you're enjoying this postpartum time with your baby and it's not becoming, like you mentioned, this stressful, anxiety inducing journey. I want moms to really, truly just find joy in breastfeeding, that it would be something fun for them, that they can walk through that journey and have joy surrounding it and not overwhelm and anxiety and tears. So that's kind of where it was birthed from.
Oh, I love that. So many women can relate to that. I know I can personally relate to that story. And I love that you have the experience that it wasn't always easy for you. That was actually one of my questions is, has breastfeeding come easy to you? Because I get really jealous when I see these moms like my sister who just, she would literally be doing hair and she'd just like strap her baby onto her and her baby would be nursing while she's like cutting people's hair. And I'm like, I am so jealous. Like, why is that so easy for you? So, why do you think some babies latch really well and some babies don't? Or why do you think it's so easy for some people and then not for others?
Yeah, I think it's really important to even just look at the statistic. Like there is in the realm of nursing, about 70 to 80% of moms do struggle with nursing at some point in their journey. But that's not always what you're seeing, right? Like even on Instagram or social media or even in real life, like I know you said, "Oh yeah, my sister was like breastfeeding and had baby latched on." You don't always see the beginning days when it is really hard, when they are figuring things out. And so I think that not that all moms struggle, but I think that all moms walk through their own breastfeeding journey and their own little milestones and road bumps, if you will. And kind of, it just depends on what kind of support you build kind of around you that helps improve that, make it more enjoyable. But yeah, I think that it has a lot to do with obviously your baby and their anatomy and you and your breast and your nipple anatomy and how you guys fit together and how you build that support around the both of you to kind of make it what you want, whether it's I want to go for X amount of months or hey, my goal is just to make it the first couple of weeks. Really just finding that balance of support and help around it. I think that some moms struggle more just because there's more going on, right? They have more obstacles or little road bumps to overcome, but overall, I think that it's a really important question, but it's also important for a lot of moms to know that it's really common to have problems or struggle with breastfeeding.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps to know that you're not alone in it for sure.
Mhm.
So, what would you say is the top three most important tips when it comes to breastfeeding?
So for me, I really think that the keys of like how do I keep things forefront, right? How do I keep things moving in the right direction? Really just education, like equipping yourself with a lot of education. Unfortunately, here in the US, I feel like moms, especially in the postpartum period, really have to advocate for themselves. There is not a nice built up web of support around postpartum and around breastfeeding. Unfortunately, moms have to do that legwork kind of on their own at the beginning. So I always think that building up your support and what that can look like is have a prenatal consult with an IBCLC, find one that you like, right? It's so important to find one that you like prior, that you click with. Because, I mean, hello, you're going to be whipping out your nipples in front of this person, or
Right.
talking about your nipples and your breast. So you want to be comfortable with that person. You want to have a rapport. So I think find a consultant before you have your baby. If you can, take a class at the hospital or take a class online. There's so many different good ones online. And then build up your support after. So maybe consider like postpartum doula, something like that. So I think support is huge. I think education is huge. And then I really think learning a lot about skin to skin and hand expression and really figuring out how that plays into your success as a breastfeeding mom, that proximity and being close to your baby improves the success and the frequency that you're doing it. So really keeping your baby close for those first, 16 to 17 hours after delivery, and then learning about hand expression and how to squeeze your own breast to get milk out. So that way, if your baby is not doing well and while they're learning and figuring out a latch, you can still give them whatever milk you're obtaining. I think that those three things, if we really focused more moms on those three things, I think we would see a lot of moms feel more confident and more supported no matter what journey or path their breastfeeding went. They would feel really supported because it's like, okay, I know I have a support system. I know what I need to do. And then as I'm going along, I reach out to that support system if I come up on something that I don't know how to overcome, or just come up on something that's really giving me a lot of anxiety or overwhelm. So I think that's probably my top three.
I love that so much. Do you have any advice for a mom that's struggling to connect to her baby and enjoy breastfeeding?
Yeah, I think this one I really love a lot because I saw a big difference with my first and my second in what my journey was like and how I did kind of find joy. And I think some of the things that really helped me was doing a lot of skin to skin, even weeks and months after the delivery happened, making that a regular part of my journey, because skin to skin doesn't require you latching. It's just you and your baby together and getting that time to really bond and connect. And I think it's really cool. We're finding more and more research out about how mom carries fetal cells with her for a long time after the birth and delivery. And so I think in some ways, based upon how your birth journey went, how your breastfeeding journey is going, it's almost like this really awesome reset for you and your baby. No matter what's going on, you can always come back to home base, even if you're just not even wanting to necessarily breastfeed, but just want to get some extra bonding in. I think that skin to skin is super powerful and very impactful because it is that connection. And you do see your baby really relax and calm down when they're on your chest. And that in turn, as a mom, it builds your confidence, but it also, like, just by sheer fact of the hormones you're releasing while your baby is there, it calms you down and it decreases your anxiety and your overwhelm. So I think that for me, skin to skin is kind of like this, probably going to date me a little bit, but kind of like the Super Nintendo reset. Like, you blow out the canister and put it back in, and you kind of just reset no matter what's going on that day. It's a good way to kind of come back to home base. So I think that's number one. And then talk to someone. There's so many postpartum mental health counselors that can work with breastfeeding frustration or trauma or overwhelm or anxiety with you. And I think that's really important to talk about because breastfeeding, in essence, should improve your mental health. So if it's not, we really should investigate why. What's going on? How are you feeling? What are your feelings towards feeding your baby? And how can we improve that is really huge. And it's not talked about a lot, but I really had a lot of trauma and overwhelm to work through from my first to my second baby. And I did do some counseling in between the two of them just because I knew, okay, I don't want this to be the same that it was the last time. I want to enjoy this and have joy around it. And so I think, yeah, do lots of skin to skin to really reset that bond, and then investigate why you're having those feelings and kind of pour back into yourself.
Yeah, I that actually leads me into what I discovered because I started talking to my friends and my doctor, and I was like, listen, like, I don't know what this is, but every time I nurse, I feel like I want to scream. I feel so claustrophobic. I have tons of anxiety. I have really dark, dark thoughts. Like, and it's just a weird rush every time, like, my milk lets down. And I
Mhm.
found out from talking to other people and not being silent about it that I had that condition. What did you say it was called? I can't even remember.
It's dysphoric milk ejection reflex. So, or DMER is what they'll often call it and abbreviate it to.
Yes. DMER. Yes. And so I thought I was broken as a mom. Like, I had so much
Mhm.
guilt. And once I figured out, like, okay, this is like your hormones are kind of fighting against you at this
Yeah.
point, then it made me feel like, okay, this isn't just, I'm not broken. This is just something that I have to work through and work with. And at that point, for my mental health, I was like, I can't breastfeed anymore. This is way, it's taking all the joy out of motherhood for me. And that was my journey, but I felt really guilty about it. So
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, I know on your Instagram, you have a post that I thought was super helpful. And I wanted to talk about it. What are the physical signs that you might need help from a professional?
Yeah, I just recently did that post and I've just run into more and more with moms and with babies that there's two sides of the coin, right? There's this physical aspect of breastfeeding, of latching on and transferring calories and really making sure your baby gets what they need. But there's also the emotional component. So with the physical signs, it's really going to be like nipples breaking down, maybe having trouble when your baby latches, they're always falling asleep or really sleepy, or maybe they're having these really short feedings, like less than 5 minutes, and that's their normal. Or maybe they're having these really long feedings over 45 or 50 minutes, and that's their normal every single time. That's what's going on. You're hearing like lots of clicking or smacking or milk leaking, or you're just having a lot of pain with breastfeeding. Those are all some physical signs. Also, weight gain and diaper counting, of course, are going to be some other ones. But those are really important kind of like signposts on the physical side of, is your baby getting what they need? Or are we seeing kind of this maybe lack of calorie transfer that we really need to address with a professional like an IBCLC, and really get that going and get that support piece happening so the physical side is met. And then on the other side of the coin is the emotional side, right? Kind of like what we've been talking about, these feelings of overwhelm, dreading feeding sessions, or feeling like you're failing, like you mentioned, like feeling like I just failed, I'm not getting it right, or having scale anxiety. This was one for me that was huge. Every time I went to the pediatrician, I would get anxiety symptoms that I wasn't even recognizing because I was so like into, did she gain weight? And then I would have like this emotional release after I left the doctor's office of like tears and crying and overwhelm. And it was like, at the time, you're a mom and you're exhausted and you're kind of going through all of it, but you don't recognize that, hey, like these emotions of feeling really overwhelmed, really anxiety inducing, those are something that we want to investigate. Now, on the flip side, DMER is kind of a interesting thing that happens with milk ejection. There's a hormone called oxytocin that's released, and so when that oxytocin is released, if you have this dysphoric milk ejection reflex, you may have, like you said, really dark thoughts, very intrusive thoughts of like, I'm doing something wrong or I'm doing something bad, feeling really sad or really upset. That's all a hormonal component to breastfeeding. There are some things, even like you just mentioned, just knowing about it helps how you feel towards it. But really and truly, I think that on when it comes to the physical side and the emotional side, you have to really take both into account to determine, when do I need help? Because you may feel like breastfeeding's going okay, but you're dreading every single feeding and you're feeling anxious for every single feeding. And that's no way to continue down a breastfeeding journey. That's not joyful. And so that's where I encourage moms, like it's not just the physical side of if my baby is getting calories. It's also like a good mental health check-in for mom because it should be contributing to positive mental health. And if it's not, then like I mentioned, we do need to investigate why, what's going on here, and how can we impact that.
I love that so much. Do you have any like common mistakes that you see women make when they're breastfeeding? Like not to shame, but maybe just to
No,
like
yeah.
bring awareness, like, hey, it might be easier if you do this, you know?
Yeah. So I think it kind of starts off, right, in those early days and hours when you first have your baby. My first one that I often will see, and again, this goes back to not necessarily shaming, but just providing more education around it. A lot of moms or families may decide, hey, you know what, the nursery or the nurses are like, just send the baby, with us so you can get some rest and really sleep and catch up from the delivery. And while that's all well and great, and it sounds like a really good plan, um, I really encourage families to kind of flip the script on that. And we know that proximity is really important to breastfeeding. There's a study that actually shows even a baby being further than 5 feet away decreased the amount of feedings that happened. And so I think it's really important to room in with your baby, keep your baby near you, because number one, you can do lots of skin to skin, you can keep your baby close, but also you'll become an expert at your baby starting to wake up and catch those early hunger cues. And a baby that's calm and just at the beginning stages of waking up and getting ready for feeding, it's much easier for them to learn and practice latching than when they're past the point of no return and they're more hungry and more fidgety and more frustrated. It's kind of like us. We all kind of joke about being hangry. Well, babies aren't a whole lot different than us. They like to learn in a calm, regulated state. And especially if baby's crying, their tongue automatically goes to the roof of their mouth, which is not ideal for latching. We want the tongue nice and calm and relaxed and sitting kind of in the palate where it's supposed to be, not all the way pushed up and tense to the roof of the mouth. So I think that's something that I see a lot of moms well meaning sending their baby to the nursery, and then by the time baby gets to them, it's like they're both a little overwhelmed and frazzled because baby's really hungry and mom's like, I can't get this latching thing to happen. Whereas if you kind of keep your baby with you, you do lots of skin to skin, keep baby just in the diaper, you can really catch those early cues. And often your baby can do a lot at the breast and chest on their own if we kind of give it baby time and let them lead the way on squirming and moving to one breast or the other and doing that nice deep latch on their own. It doesn't always happen super quickly, but it is a little bit more baby led. And so, therefore, it tends to be a little bit more calming for everyone. And you really can typically get a really deep latch when baby is in that kind of calm, collected state.
I love that advice. Thank you. I have a couple questions that I wish I would have known before when I was breastfeeding. Okay. So the first one is, do you have a favorite pump?
No, so I get asked this about pumps. I also get asked all the time about baby carriers. And I always give this analogy. It's kind of like asking me to pick out my favorite cookie. I just can't do it. Like I like cookies. I'm always going to like cookies. And I think it really has to go back to what do you need for like your lifestyle as far as do you need a pump that's portable? Do you need a pump that has separate vacuum and suction? Do you like a timer? Do you want a night light? What size flange do you need, right? Because pumps come in all different sizes. And so I think that's important to kind of not necessarily know the exact size because it can change a little bit after delivery, but at least know a roundabout number of where you sit. So that way, if you're ordering a pump, it's not a pump that doesn't offer a flange in the size you need, right? So I mean, there's typically kind of the top ones that are pretty like crowd popular as far as like Medela brand, Spectra. The other one is the Lancino. There's a lot of popular ones that moms gravitate towards that have a lot of really good functions. And so I always say, look at your lifestyle and evaluate like, what are my needs? What do I need in a pump as far as features and function? And then kind of go from there.
I love that. Okay, what about how do you know if your baby's getting enough milk? Like if you're exclusively breastfeeding, I get this question a lot. Like, I'm not actually sure how
Mhm.
much they're drinking. I hope they're getting enough, you know? And then on the flip side, how do you know if they're not getting enough milk?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to I have a post that actually it's like this exact question. And I really love it because, like you said, it's the same question we get all the time, super frequently asked question with breastfeeding. So I think it's really important to number one, look at your baby, right? So if they are past, the first 5 days of life, or rather in the first 1 to 5 days of life, they should have the number of pees and poops for the number of day. So, for instance, day of life one, they should have one of each. That's the bare minimum. I like to see more, but the minimum is the day of life. And then once you get to about day 5, your baby should have 6 to 10 wet, nice saturated diapers. And if you're like, I don't know what's saturated, get like a little tablespoon at home and fill up a diaper with 3 of those and kind of know what that weight feels like in your hand. And that'll give you a good idea of, is this a, saturated or nice full diaper? And then with poops, you want 3 to 4 of those a day. And then you want them larger than the size of a US quarter. So if it's more than that amount, then we count it as a poop. And so diapers are number one because just like what's going in their mouth, it has to come out some way. So we like to see those diaper counts being right on trend. And then I also encourage moms to really pay attention to poops consistency, not just the amount that they're having, but is it yellow? Is it nice and seedy? If it's seedy, it's letting us know that baby's getting to that fattier content of the milk. All milk has fat. It's just a matter of the beginning of the feed has a little bit less. And as your baby gets further and further into the feed, it gets fattier. So if they're having those little curds in their poop, that lets me know, hey, they're getting to the end or the fattier parts of your milk. And that's a good sign. Also, we like to see them track on their growth curve. So, kind of trend as they grow, they're gaining. They'll usually lose weight in the first 5 to 7 days. And then we kind of want them to be back at birth weight or more by 2 weeks of life. And then really looking at, does baby seem happy and content between feedings? Are they getting sleep throughout the day? Or are they always kind of like have their hands in the mouth and their shoulders up by their ears, like their little bodies are tense, like they're needing more calories? And then also check in with yourself as well. What do your breast tissue feel like prior to a feeding? Are they warm? Are they heavy? Do they feel full and firm? And then when you latch your baby on, maybe some moms get a feeling during letdown, some don't. But are you feeling more relaxed after the feeding happens? Are your breasts nice and soft? Are they seem lighter or squishier? How do you feel as far as, did you get really thirsty during the feeding? Did you get super hot? Those are all signs that that oxytocin hormone was flowing, letting me know, okay, there is some milk transfer happening. You hear baby doing swallows. You see milk when baby comes off, like if you squeeze on the breast. Do you see a few drops of milk coming? That's a good sign to you that, okay, there had to have been some milk flowing while they're on. So I always say, kind of like, look at baby and then look at yourself. I always like moms to pair the two, whether it's with like the mental health, like we're talking about, or the physical side of calorie transfer, because there's two people to the puzzle. It's like a dance. And so we want to make sure we're checking in on both parties every time, no matter what it is we're looking at.
Awesome. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. Do you have any last, like, where can my clients and followers find more information if they want to know more from you?
Yeah, so I'm of course on Instagram as lutz.lactation, so I'm there for sure. I also have my website, lutzlactation.com. There's no period in that one, just all one word together. And I'm hoping to start doing a few different classes online, offering some webinars and workshops. So definitely follow my social media or jump over on my website to get that information. And then I also have, for anyone that's listening, if you go straight to my Instagram, there's actually a free download, just like how to prepare 3 different checklists for you, pumping bag checklist, birth, like a birthing checklist, what to pack in your bag, and then a breastfeeding checklist. And then it's got diaper tracking and a daily planner, and then a few other little door hanger downloads that are really cute to take with you to the hospital. So definitely, for sure, get the free download, and then stay up with me on my social media or my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share all of your knowledge. I know that you definitely helped a lot of people today.
Oh, thank you so much. I so enjoyed it.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. If you liked the content and want to hear more, remember to hit that subscribe button and write a review. As a small business owner, I appreciate it more than you know. If you are looking for a program to help with self-confidence, to lose weight, get in shape, and work on your mental, physical, and emotional health, check out my training programs on www.bodybybree.com. My team and I help to hold you accountable through the Body by Bree app, where you log in to see all your workouts, custom meal plan made specifically for you and your needs, and communication through the messenger. You are never alone when you're on the Body by Bree training program. Click the link in the show notes to get more information on how to transform your life from the inside out.